often hear behind every man there is a great woman. And that great woman was my godmother, Mom Ridge, who chose me as a child to be her goddaughter. And from that day forward, my relationship with my godfather, Dad Ridge, has been amazing. I am truly going to miss the visits that we have had together, the laughter, and a lot of talking. I will cherish those memories forever. Rest well, Godfather. I love you.
To Mother Glover and the Ridge family, we want to share our condolences with you on today. Sister Barbara and myself and the entire Bethany Community Church wanted to share our condolences with you. I don't want to say on the loss of your father, but on his homegoing. It's times like this that we try to think of things that will uplift and bring joy to the family and to bring you comfort. I was thinking that we're entering close into the football season, and I was trying to equate what was going on. And so the analogy that came to me is simply this, is that we have to learn how to count our blessings, and we have to learn how to be grateful for what God has done for us. And so I began to think about the fact that life is like a football game, which consists of 4 quarters. And when I think about the time that God has allotted mankind, he said that he would give us 70, which equals out to 70 years. And when you think about that, it's like a football game. The first quarter consisting of 0 to 17 and a half. It's during that time that we learn our basic fundamentals and we learn who we are, discover ourselves, and make many discoveries. And it is from 17 and a half to 35 that we move into the second quarter of life. It is during the second quarter of life that we really now focus in on what we're going to do, what we're going to be. And by the time we get to 35, we're at halftime. And that's the time to go back and reassess where you are and what you're doing. And if you're making it, and if you're not making it, you go back and change your strategy and change your game. From 35 to 53 and a half, you enter into the third quarter of life, the most productive time that anyone has. And you want to do all that you can to be productive during the third quarter. But it is from 53 and a half to 70 that we find ourselves in the fourth quarter of life. And you have to be careful in the fourth quarter of life because you can lose the game right at the end. You can lose the game by unnecessary roughness. You can lose the game by stepping out of bounds. And so we have to be so careful. And then anything over 70 is overtime. And I got to thinking about it and I said, well, my God, here's a blessing. And it's a blessing in disguise. Because, Sister Kathy, stop and think about this. Your father, at 95 years old, lived 25 years in overtime. And you got something to thank God for. He lived a quarter century in overtime. God allowed him to stay here and to be with you. And even if you had to care for him and take care of him, he was here. And we thank God for that. I contrast that with a young girl in my church. I was there the day she was born. I lifted her up in the air and dedicated her to God. She's 9 years old, but we had to come and tell her that her father had just died. Stop and think about the difference. He never made it, and she never made it into the first quarter. Your father got overtime and got it in double digits. And so we're praying for you. I know it's not going to be easy. It wouldn't matter if he had lived 1,000 years in overtime. It's still not going to be easy. But I have some good news for you. That God says he knows how to wipe away every tear. You're going to have some good days. You're going to have some days you'll struggle. But I'm here to tell you today, we're not here because your father died. But we're here because he lived, and he lived a very good life. God bless you. Barbara and I and our children are praying for you. We love you dearly. God bless.
This is a special message to the family regarding my Uncle George. We all have special memories about Uncle George. He was a force to be reckoned with, but we loved him, we loved him, we loved him. There was never a trip to Los Angeles without visiting Uncle George. Uncle George was the type that he always had to meet your family, he loved your family, and just always welcoming into his home. So Uncle George, you will truly be missed. Love you.
Good afternoon. My name is William Scott. George Ridge was my brother-in-law. I was married to his wife's baby sister, Elretha Scott, or many of you may have known her as Punch. It is a privilege to share memories of my friend George with you. George related to me that as a young man he served in the United States Navy and later worked in the shipyards until his health would not permit it. I felt special to George. Of the five brother-in-laws, there were five brother-in-laws of us that married six sisters. But of the five brother-in-laws, he was the only one that called me Bill. All others said William. George was special. He was sometimes referred to as George Cadillac Ridge, because ever since I knew him, ever since I came into the family, that is the only car that George would drive. Now, on hobbies, you might call them hobbies, he did a lot of renovating around his house, working on cars that I think that belonged to his son or someone. He would be working on those, helping them with the cars. And one other thing you might think of as a hobby, he could give money away. When the nieces, nephews, and grandchildren came by, they never left there the same. They always left with more money in their pocket than they arrived, because George was always giving money to the kids. I do believe that George literally would have given you the shirt off his back. I do truly believe that George was a heart and loving and caregiving person. History says that Caesar was the only person that was able to carry on two serious conversations at the same time. Well, I think George was close to it, because if you visited his home, you notice that he had a room off to the side that was his exclusively. He had two televisions and a radio going. And you think that was strange. But if you asked him a question about any one of those, he was able to give you the information, detailed information about it. So he must have been understanding it. I've got to leave now with this message about George. It's one I think that really fits him. It says, when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Thank you, and God bless you.
He introduced me to my husband, who is alive for 50 years. He was married to my sister, George always had money. He could do anything he wanted to do. George would give my parents $100 bill every time he see them. And in those days, $100 bill was lots of money. He could buy lots of things. But today, $100 can't buy much. When we went in his house, he always made a welcome. Very happy to see us. But in his living room, he always had 6 TV going on at one time on different stations. and he always wore about 5 or 6 watches at one time. Every year, George would buy a new Cadillac, because George was a very smart man, a man that I will never forget. He will always be in my heart.
Good afternoon. I'm Elder Timothy Henderson, Lieutenant Colonel, retired United States Air Force. It is my honor and my pleasure today to offer a tribute to the family on behalf of Mr. George Ridge for his service to this nation. I looked through his file and I noticed that he served in World War II, a time when discrimination and segregation was the norm of the day for the War Department, where African Americans were challenged in many ways to succeed. His resiliency, his perseverance, his excellence in attitude allowed him to excel in so many ways. It is because of him that young men and women like myself who have come along later have been able to stand on his shoulders to move forward and to take advantage of opportunities not otherwise offered. To the family, I salute you. God bless you, and may God give you peace and comfort in this hour. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Steve Ridge. This is my wife, Lakeisha Ridge, and my 8-year-old daughter, Aaliyah Ridge. Okay, y'all go ahead. Okay, I'm here to tell you about my Uncle George. To me, he was Uncle Honey. He was a dresser. He always dressed nice, had him big fine Cadillacs every year. Him and Aunt Armour, when they came down to see my dad and grandma in Madeira, we had a wonderful time. He always gave us a little piece of money. Well, I'm gonna tell you this one story about Uncle George that I remember when I went off to college. I went off to college in San Diego, and I came down to visit Uncle George and Aunt Armour, and he invited me in. He said, "Sit down, nephew." I sat down. He was in this chair, big black chair. He had like 4 TVs or 5 TVs going on, and I looked at him and I said, "Why you got all these TVs going on, Uncle?" He said, "One is ABC, one is NBC, one is CBS, one is the Western, and one is the ball game." And I was like, "Wow, you got an incredible mind. You're sitting here watching all this." He was amazing, very educated, very smart. Then when he got ready to get up, I looked at his arm and he had like 4 or 5 watches on his arm. And I started laughing. I said, "Why you got all them watches, Uncle?" He said, "One is for my blood pressure. One is to let me know if I'm late to my appointments. One is to let me know what time the regular time is today. And the other one was a solid gold." And I said, "Wow." And I smiled at him, and he looked at me and smiled. He looked the way I was dressed, and he said, "Boy, you need to dress better." And I said, "Okay, Uncle." He said, "Come here." And he got up, and he walked me in the bedroom. He pulled out 5 or 6 tailor-made suits, laid them across the bed. He said, "Look at this one, look at this one, look at that one." And then he showed me, opened his closet, and I seen all this lines of Stacey Adams shoes. "You gotta have a shoe to go with the suit, boy." And he just smiled at me and gave me a hug. I got ready to leave that day, and after visiting with him, I was on my way back to San Diego, and he pulled me to the side and he said, "You got connecting eyebrows, just like your daddy." You know, my daddy and him was brothers. And I said, "Yeah." And then he said, "Come here." He rested in his pocket and he pulled out a bankroll, nothing but hundreds. And he said, "Here." And he peeled me off 300. He said, "Go buy you a suit and some shoes, boy." And I said, "Thank you, Uncle." Believe me, back then, this was 1977. I was 17 years old. $100 was a lot of money. I mean, $300. So I was happy with that. I never forget him blessing me like that. I also wanted to say that he's in a better place. You know, the Bible say, away from the Lord, absence from the Lord means that you with Jesus. When you stop breathing, you automatically meet Jesus. So he up there, he didn't see what Jesus really looked like. He there. And all I can say to Kathy, to Shuggy, to Henry and Ray, I know what it feels like to lose a dad. Y'all all stick together, man. Y'all help each other. One fall down, y'all help each other. Because that's all y'all got is each other. I ain't got nothing more to say about my uncle, but he was a great man. All right, bridges to the end, y'all.
My name is Sheila Scott Hogue. I am the niece of George Ridge, and it's an honor to be with you to share memories of my beloved uncle. Probably one of my first memories of Uncle George is when I was 4 or 5 years old. He had driven up to Northern California. I was at my Aunt Teresa's house with my other family, my parents, my brother, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and we were gathered to celebrate a holiday. And then all of a sudden, a luxurious, long Cadillac pulled into the driveway, and out of that car stepped a tall, smooth-skinned man with black wavy hair. And my mother turned to me and she said, "Sheila, go say hi to your Uncle George." And that is my first memory of my wonderful, long, enduring relationship with my beloved uncle. Every time I saw Uncle George, he would pull up in the longest, most luxurious Cadillac that there was available. And he always left me with a little pocket change that I can go and purchase something that I wanted to. Uncle George was a wealth of knowledge. If you ever had the opportunity to visit him at his home in his living room, you would know that he always had at least 4, 5, maybe 6 TVs turned on a different station at all times. I remember visiting him one time and I said, "Uncle George, why do you have on so many TVs at the same time? And why are they all on different channels?" And he said to me, "Sheila, it's because I need to know what's going on in the world at all times." And you know what? He did. I don't care what TV you would point to, he could tell you exactly what the topic was on that TV. Whether it had to do with the gas shortage, the hostage crisis in Iran, whether the Raiders had just won a football game or not, he knew it all, and he knew it in real time. I remember one time when I was in college, I came to LA with my roommate who lived in LA. And I said to her, "I can stay at your home, but there's no way I can be in LA without going to visit my Uncle George." So I took her and 3 of my other college friends to visit Uncle George. Oh, we had a great time. We sat in that living room and talked to him for hours. And by the time we left, he knew every single name of my friends. He remembered everything that they had told him about their families. And of course, when we left, he gave us all a little pocket change so we could have. Uncle George was unique. He was one of a kind, and we were all better for knowing him. So I thank you for the opportunity to just share a couple of my memories with my beloved Uncle George. God truly sent him as a blessing in my life. Thank you.
Hello, we are James and Kinsella Reddick, and we would love to live this message on behalf of our uncle, Uncle George. I have so many wonderful memories of my uncle. As a child, my sister and I and my parents, we would pack up our car and we would drive from Oakland, California to Los Angeles. And we would pack up with food and sandwiches and fried chicken in anticipation of getting to Los Angeles. Once we got there, we would always be greeted at the door by our Uncle George, and he would have this huge smile and this welcoming heart, and he would be so excited to see us. And once he greets us, he would then go right back to his recliner chair and watch his mini TVs. I'm sure everyone's heard of these mini TVs, but it was quite fascinating to us as a child to watch someone with so many TVs going at one time. I remember when my husband and I got married, he called me up and he said he was sending me a set of dishes because he wanted me to serve him dinner when next time he comes to visit. We still never really had that dinner, but I still have the dishes. And when my sons were born, he sent me a double stroller because my sons were within 2 years of each other. And he said this was going to be their first car of many, their first ride of many. And that was just an example of some of his generosity and his kindness that he shared to each of us as his nieces, and each of us in our own unique way, in our own relationship with him.
My name is James. I am Consuela's husband. I met George while I was dating my wife. I met him at his home. He asked me when I met him what was my interest in his daughter and his niece, and I told him that I found his niece very interesting and that I wanted to get to know her even better. George was a very interesting person, very unique. He welcomed me into the family. Each time I saw him, he made me smile and made me feel welcome. We will miss him, and we love him.
I greet you today, and I take just a moment to come before you to first of all say to the Ridge family and to Kathy Glover that we are praying for you all, and you certainly have our condolences as you celebrate the homegoing of your father and grandfather, Mr. George Ridge. As I was thinking about his life intertwined with my father, Pastor Adolphus McAllister, when they were just young boys coming from Oklahoma. In 1936, they were both born in Depew, Oklahoma, and came out to California, settled there in a little country land called Dixieland, and then later moved into town in Madera. But George Ridge and Adolphus McAllister were, though not biologically connected, they were yet like two peas in a pod. They grew up together, they ran together, they were bosom buddies when they decided that they would go into the service together, into the Navy. That says something about how close they were. Both later worked at the shipyard. George Ridge remained there for a while until locating to Southern California. My father was there for a while and then came back to Madera, California. But he always talked about George and what he meant, and it was obvious to me that this man had a profound impact on his life. And so today we celebrate with you all, and we grieve with you as well regarding the loss of such a great man. But it is our prayer and desire that God will continue to strengthen and bless your family during this time of adjustment. May the peace of God rest and be with all of you. Be blessed of the Lord.